1 Hour Smart Home here, and today we're going to review the BedJet, which we've got right here. And if you haven't heard of a BedJet, what it is a system designed to help you regulate temperature at night. It will both heat and cool your bed, so if you're a hot sleeper, you can cool down, or if you're a cold sleeper, you can warm up. So I'm an extraordinarily hot sleeper, and it's been a challenge for me to sleep sometimes, especially in the summer months. And what the BedJet does is it blows air through your sheet to help cool you down. So we're going to show you how it works, but first I'm just going to demonstrate right here some of the basics of the BedJet. Then we'll show it to you on the bed, as well as some of the settings that I prefer as a hot sleeper. And if you're a cold sleeper, some of the settings that you may prefer. So the BedJet system is right here, and this tucks in underneath your bed. And then what you've got is this air tube, and you have this nozzle here. So this goes at the end of the bed, and the only thing that should be sticking out, and you'll see this when we show it in action at the end of the bed, is this little piece here, and then this is all underneath the bed. Then what you've got, and I recommend, you don't have to get this, but I do recommend it because it definitely made a difference for me, is this cloud sheet. And what the cloud sheet is it's a perforated sheet. You can't see the perforations, but how they weave it makes it so that air will come out one side, and it just helps circulates the air better. So you could just get the BedJet itself right here, throw this under your existing bedding, and it's going to help cool you down or warm you up. However, to get the most functionality out of this, this cloud sheet is what they call it, will then allow you to put the nozzle in the bottom of the sheet here. So we got the nozzle in, and the nozzle goes in like this in the bottom of the sheet, and then the sheet has perforations on one side, and then the other side doesn't have perforations. So when you turn this on, it helps circulate air. Now, another optional feature is this remote. You can get the BedJet, and it will work with the app, and then you're going to have the functionality to turn on and off the BedJet with the app, and there's no extra cost to use the app. We actually have a video that shows you how to set up both the BedJet and the app, so check those down in the description below. And right now is a great time to also click that subscribe button if you like this content. Now, the remote I do recommend, just because then you don't have to reach for your phone at night. I'm not a big fan of being on the phone at night in screens, but what this has is a remote that allows you to just turn it on or off and use some of your existing settings. So I'm just going to turn this on so you can see how this will work. So I just clicked the cool button on this, and what you're going to see is that this air is pumping into the sheet. And then watch this. This is pretty cool. It will actually inflate this sheet, and it's more drastic when it's on the bed, so we'll show it to you there. But you can see this is all air that is circulating around you. So I'm going to turn that off right now, and then we're going to show this in action on the bed so that you can actually see how this works and get an idea. All right, so we've got the BedJet set up on the bed, and we've got the cloud sheet connected. So you can see the BedJet is down below, it's plugged in, and then you have the vent coming up. And then what we've got right here, this is that cloud sheet with that nozzle tucked in right there. Now there are two other ports on the BedJet. There's one on this side and there's one on this side, and those are designed to help circulate air for your personal preference. I prefer it down at the bottom here. And this is a single chamber sheet, but you can get a dual chamber sheet, and then you would have two BedJets. You'd have one here and you'd have one there, so you could have hot on one side and cold on the other if you've got a partner that sleeps a different temperature than you. Now, what first confused me about the BedJet when I got it was that I thought the cloud sheet went on the bottom. The cloud sheet is a top sheet. You have just a standard fitted sheet, which you need to provide for your own bed like you would have with normal bedding. So I've just got a typical cotton or linen white fitted sheet underneath here. So let's take a look and watch this work. I've got my remote right here, so I'm just going to press cool on this now. And what that's going to do, I've got it set to 100%, and it's a little bit hard to see what I have everything set to because of the lighting in here, but I've got my fan set to 100%. And then it will actually tell you the temperature. So it's 67 in the room. And you can see what's happened here is that this has now started to inflate. So the entire sheet will inflate, and even all the way up to the top, you can see these different air chambers here. So it's really well inflated here. You can see down at the bottom it inflates, and it inflates all the way up to the top of the sheet. You can see just how much this will inflate, and this is all the way throughout the bed. So what I like about this is that this is a top sheet. You put the top sheet on, and then you still can put your comforter over the top of this, and the BedJet will still circulate air. It has enough power in it to circulate air even when a comforter is on, so you still have that feeling of having some weight on you, which I like when I sleep, and then you're able to control the temperature. So we'll take a look at the remote and the app now so you can see how everything works in terms of the settings and things and functionality that I like. But you can see how easy it is for this to get set up and then how this works. So this is circulating air, hot air or cold air throughout the bed. And then this cloud sheet, you can see you can just move it, pull it, whatever you want, however you want this. And then you can have a comforter on top of that. So we've got the BedJet remote right here, and anything you can do on the BedJet remote, you can do on the app, and we'll go over a tour of the app as well. But what I like about the remote is that it has a ton of customization. You can shake this thing awake, you can have a button that you press to wake it up, but the display is super clear and easy to read, and it makes it really easy to use this. Now, let's say I wanted to cool. All I need to do is press the cool button, and then it shows you your actual temperature and then the setting temperature. So if I wanted to turn that temperature up, the setting, I could turn that up higher to 72. And then if I want to turn down my fan, I had it at 100, I can just turn that down to whatever I want, 5%, and then it's going to blow even less. Now it has an auto off setting that this is going to turn off after 10 hours. Now let's say I wanted to heat, all I do is click the heat button, and then it's the same thing here. I can adjust my fan with this easy to use button, and then I can also adjust my temperature here. So you can turn it all the way up to 104 degrees in heat mode, and then if you put it in turbo mode, it will heat even higher, and then that has an auto off of 30 minutes. Now you've also got options for drying, and then what you have is 3 settings down here which you can set to your liking that are preset settings that you can use on the remote. So let's say I just wanted to cool here. I just click there and I'm in cooling, and then what you can do is add more time. If you wanted it to go more than 10 hours, you could do 10 hours and 15 minutes or 18 minutes, whatever you wanted there. But it's a super easy to navigate remote, and you've got everything you need on the display. It's very intuitive, and I appreciate that. Then you can go into the menu button, and you've got a whole bunch of different options right here. You can make sure that the device is paired so that the remote will pair with the base station unit, which is very easy and pretty much automatically does when you set it up. Watch that setup video. But if you run out of batteries on remote, you may have to repair this. So let's say I want to go back to my menu here. I wake this up. You can click and just go to the remote setting, and you can change your screen timeout. So I should probably turn this to 30 seconds. I just have it at the minimum because at the middle of the night when I use it, I don't want it on for that long. You've got a brightness adjustment. You can have backlit keys, which I do like. Shake and wake, so that when you've got this on your nightstand, you can just shake it and it turns on. You see the display. You've got Celsius or Fahrenheit, and then you've got your firmware version. So let's go back here in the remote setting, and then you've got your BedJet set up here. You can update the firmware. You can turn on or off. There's a little beep. If you don't want that beep on, you can turn that on and off. And there's also a little light logo. I recommend turning both those off. You can rename the device. Mine is just Captain Sleepy, but you could name it whatever you want. You can set the clock, and you can have a low power mode and then advanced settings here. So let's go back on the remote setting, and we're going to go to biorhythm. So I like this, and what this is, you can set it up in the app, and I think it's easier to explain in the app, but you can have these quick shortcuts. And what the biorhythm is you can have it cycle through like heating for 10 minutes, where it'll heat up to 104 degrees for 10 minutes, and then you can have it turn down to 67 degrees for 9 hours and 30 minutes, or maybe you want it to be 75 degrees for another hour, and then in the middle of the night you want to do 65 degrees, you can do that with the biorhythm, and then you can go in here and just press what biorhythm you want, and then it will run that biorhythm each night. And I wasn't super convinced that this with the biorhythms at first, and then I used one and I did sleep really good, where it heated up the bed first so I got a little bit warm, and then it cooled it down to 60 or so degrees. Now, my favorite setting on a cold day or in the winter is the turbo mode. You click the turbo mode and it heats the bed up to 109 degrees for 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, when it's cold outside and you get back in and you get to jump in the warm bed, that feels pretty darn good. So we'll turn that off, and now I'm going to show you the app and how that works. This is the BedJet app, and anything that you can control on the BedJet remote, you can also control on the app. Now, the app is free, where the BedJet remote typically does cost more depending on what package you get. You can cool, heat, or dry, or they have an extended heat function, and you can change the fan speed right here, up or down, just by clicking on the app. You can also turn the temperature up or down on the app, and you can choose any of these modes: turbo, heat, and then this is that extended heat or dry, or you can turn it off right here. So we'll just leave it on cool right now and turn it way down. Now, you also have settings that you can create here. So you click in here and it has an auto setting. So if you want 5% and whatever your set point is, you can save that, and then you can have 3 different of those saved settings. Now, one thing that I like, and I showed you a little bit on the remote, is the biorhythm settings. And I like this because you can change what temperature you want throughout the night. So you've got a turbo setting where it heats for 3 minutes, and then it goes down to 40% turbo for 3 minutes, and then you wait for 10 minutes, and then you have cooling for 20 minutes. But you can go through here and change any of the durations and time for the biorhythm, and it shows you the full night of sleep. So we've got a couple different ones in here suggested. We've got this trial one, and then if you wanted to create a new one, you can do that, and then you give it a name. So you can have up to 3 of these, or you can load them up here. Now, in terms of other settings, if you want to have 2 BedJets on one app, you can do that by adding a new device. You've got your paired device list. You can rename your BedJet. So mine is just called Captain Sleepy. You can control the lights and sounds, the clock settings, update the firmware, set up the Wi-Fi, which you do need to do in order to use this with the app. And then you've got temperature units or factory resetting your BedJet. So plenty of different settings here within the BedJet app that you can use. But my favorite part of the app versus a remote is using the biorhythm sleep sequences to customize how you want to sleep. So if you wanted to go in here and change this, you can add a step before, delete a step, add a step after, or change the amount of time you want that particular temperature to be. So the app is free, but the remote typically does cost money. I like the remote for the convenience in the middle of the night so I don't have to grab my phone, but I do like the app so that I can customize things exactly how I want them for things like the biorhythm, or sometimes if you've just got your phone there next to you, it's easy to turn it on from your phone. Overall, the app functions like the remote in that it's intuitive to use and very simplistic design. So I'll answer a couple of questions that you may have about the BedJet. Now, there are both single zone and dual zone systems. So if you have a partner, you can actually have a cloud sheet that is divided into 2 separate chambers. So one person could have a hot chamber and the other person could have a cold chamber in the sheet, but then that requires 2 BedJets. Or you could just have one person with a BedJet, but the 2-chamber sheet, so only one person is getting heating or cooling. Or you can just have a single zone sheet where both of you are getting the same temperature air. So you're going to get just cooling, and it's one chamber in the sheet. I will say, in my opinion, that the cloud sheet is definitely worth it, and I do think the remote is worth it as well, even though those are add-ons. In terms of your comfort, and if you will need 2 of these, that really just depends on your partner and their preference for sleeping. Now, did this help me cool down at night? It doesn't have air conditioning built in. It does have heat built in, so you can warm up air all the way up to around 109 degrees, which feels amazing when it's a colder night. But because it doesn't have air conditioning, it's only going to cool you down to the ambient temperature within the room. However, what I have found is that because the air is circulating around your body, it allows your body to naturally remove sweat around yourself, and it will definitely help you cool yourself down naturally. And I feel like I'm about 10 degrees cooler than the given room temperature whenever I've got the BedJet connected to the sheet and it's working in cooling mode. So if my room is 70 degrees and I turn this on to 100% cooling, I feel much closer to 60 degrees because that circulating air is allowing my body to remove whatever perspiration naturally, which helps me cool down, as well as it prevents me, what the main thing was when I was sleeping, when I would get too hot, is that the bed itself just starts to accumulate so much heat so that at the middle of the night, let's say 2 or 3 in the morning, the bed is now warmed up and I am just extremely hot because the bed's the same temperature as my body temperature. And the BedJet does prevent that because all that circulating air is removing the heat with the ambient air temperature from the bed. So the bed stays closer to the ambient temperature than it does the temperature of my body in the bed, which is around 98 degrees. So that is the biggest thing and value proposition that I have seen with the BedJet. If you are a hot sleeper or a cold sleeper, I see this as a huge win to help you sleep more comfortably. That has been my experience, especially when it gets really hot in the summertime. Now, in the wintertime or when it's cold, even though I'm not a cold sleeper, it does feel pretty good to press the heat button on this thing and toast your bed up to 109 degrees and get in the bed nice and toasty when it's cold outside, and that feels great. So overall, if a BedJet is right for you, that's going to be up to you. But for me, it did help me stay cooler at night and significantly improve my comfort throughout the night where I would typically get hot at 2 or 3 in the morning. Now I stay closer to that ambient temperature, or the bed stays closer to the ambient temperature because the circulation of the air through the cloud sheet. And initially when I was getting this and making the investment in it, I didn't really want to buy both the BedJet and the cloud sheet. I did some research on how this works as well as the remote. And when you do that and you look around, you find that most people that have the most satisfaction with the system are going to go with the cloud sheet and then the remote, even though it does cost extra. However, I have tested it out just underneath a sheet or a comforter, and it still does work. It does circulate air. It's just that you're not going to get as even of a distribution of air throughout your bed without the cloud sheet, because the cloud sheet has all those different chambers that help circulate the air throughout the bed in all the different spots evenly, rather than it just coming out the nozzle and then being distributed at random through the covers underneath your bed. So thanks for watching this review of the BedJet. Give us that thumbs up, subscribe, and click any of the links below if you want to support us. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.